Welcome back, everyone. This is Sanni Päkkönen. This is Eternal Present YouTube channel, and I'm here with Melinda Molnar. We've had conversations about frequency and frequency awareness. So, Melinda, do you just want to put it all on the table? What are we talking about today?
Yes, I want to put it on the table. Hello, Sanni, and hello, everybody. Manifestation technology. There's a lot of noise, a lot of talk about manifestations, and all you need to do is match your vibration to what you would like to feel, be, have, experience. And a lot of us are doing that. We go into meditation and we visualize and we even feel in our body, what would it feel like to, and whatever it is, to have the perfect relationship or have more wealth or be in certain parts of the earth where you'd like to be, and then crickets. So what is the missing part, and how can we refine this ability of ours? Because it is given to all of us. We are creators. We are here to create, and we create our lives. So where is the part where we might be missing something, missing a clue, not recognizing something that we're doing or not doing?
Yes.
I give that back to you, Sanni.
Yeah, I love this question, and it's so relevant right now. And one big thing that is first and foremost that I really just right off the bat when I put it out there is that there's two kinds of manifestations. And one is self-centered manifestation,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is God-centered manifestation. Right. So those who's been listening to these videos before, so we've spoken about thy will, not my will, like what does divine will, like higher will, God's will in our lives mean versus the separate self-will that is wanting to do the life and manage the life and micromanage the life in its own way, right? And how much there is talk about like not giving the power away, and it's disempowering, and so much work around like empowerment and self-empowerment, self-healing, self-development, self-this, self-that, right? And it's really created this really interesting almost like culture around manifestation that is actually quite far from eternal, meaning that when actually, well, I'm just going to do this. I was like, I'm not going to take the whiteboard out today, but I'm going to take the whiteboard out. So say this over here would be eternal presence, right? This is the doorway to divine, to God's mind, to God's presence, which is like, in other words, like what is presence? Presence is also God, right? God is presence, and we can't change that fact however much we try to, right? So a lot of the manifestation, when it comes from the self-centered space, self-led, self-appointed space, it actually leaves the field of eternal presence and it starts to do it over here somewhere. So this is why there's been entire realities, distorted realities, manipulated realities that have been created around this one true reality. There's only one true reality that is in eternal presence, right? And that is the presence. And there's all these billions of different manifestations of realities. And this is because of the human need to manifest from that self-centered space, right? That's what's gotten humankind in trouble in the first place, is that leaving truth, leaving God's presence, leaving living light, and trying to figure it out all on our own, and trying to do it in our way. This is my way and not thy way, right? And of course, like the whole religious trauma and all of that, we've spoken about this a lot before, has really contributed to that. Like we have had a reason to run away from like what we're taught what God's will mean, right? Like the whole religious distortion around it. It's like, well, nowhere I want to do that, because it is actually, it's not here either. It's equally as off as the other end, right? So the most important thing is to realize where we are manifesting from. And when we really realize where we are manifesting from, so as we grow in the deeper intimacy with eternal presence, which is, in other words, with God in our lives, with divine intelligence in our lives, the need to manifest is quite literally ceasing to exist, because you simply, instead of us trying to create something, we actually become the creation itself, right? Which means that we get out of the way, the separate self gets out of the way, and that higher power is starting to move through us as us, which means that we, like, the separate self is dying, so to say, and it's being born again in that in deep intimacy and manifestation as the living light, right? So now the manifestations are coming from that space. It's just naturally happening, right? It's not that I am trying to manifest something to happen. I become the manifestation, and I'm naturally starting to experience that in my life, no matter what it is, right? And so this is, again, like, the question here is, like, if somebody really truly understands that, they would not have a need to try to fix it, try to change it, try to add something on it or take something out of it, right? This is the whole problem of the human mind, is to always, like, there's a perfection, and then we come here and we start editing it and manipulating. Oh, I want it differently because of my past and because of the expectations of future based in the past. And when we really start living in that eternal presence, the need to edit the perfect manifestation that already naturally is just coming out of us, is simply just rising out of us, and we just say yes to it, and we are fully active with it. It's very highly passionate and active presence, right? It's not just a passive silence, but it's really highly active. There's no need to try to make it anything different, right? So that was, like, the very baseline response to that, like, right off the bat, that needs to be clear. So I'll now hand it back to you.
That was really beautiful, and in that like answers everything. And there was a question that arose, but you answered it, but I'll still ask it because some people still may have this question, that when you said leaving the living light, since everything that there is of the living light, how do we ever leave the living light? What do you mean by leaving the living light?
Right. Well, technically, we never can leave presence, right? Eternal presence just is, and it wouldn't be eternal presence if it was anything else, right? So what happens there is that there is a concept of separation, which is what we can call, and we have mentioned it here, the fallen nature of human beings. And there's also other spiritual beings who are impacted by the separation, the seeming separation from God, right? So the fallen nature from truth, which allows lies to exist, for example. And so that's what it means, like, when somebody starts to live in that or thinks that the fallen nature is the true reality, it will start creating entire universe that is somewhere out here instead of being in the eternal presence. And this is where it starts creating this entire, like, a frame that, for example, you can think about lack would be just like that. Lack is existing. When somebody is existing in a lack, they quite literally live within the framework of lack, and they would continue to experience lack in whatever form it is, or abuse, or whether a family lineage disease or something like that. If we are walking here in this other, like, these other timelines, if our body is resonating in these other timelines, in other realities that is not in the present and in the truth, then it becomes like our reality, but it's not actually a true reality. I'm careful using the word, so some people use illusion, right? That these are all illusion. It depends how people use the word illusion, because I really want to emphasize that these realities, they are real. It's not just bullshit. They are real, but they are not truthful. They are not fully aligned. They are not actually a full expression and manifestation of truth, right? They are a version of truth that has gotten distorted, but they are real. They are actually existing. We're not making this stuff up, right? It's existing. And now this is where the free will becomes so important, because the free will is the one that got us out of time, out of presence. And now the free will is the one who can also bring us back, because it's our current, anybody, no matter what has happened to us, no matter how much we've been hurt from in the past, etc., we always have the choice to presence ourselves, right? And now the question, what you also put up on the table in the beginning, like to say the mechanics or technology and mechanics of manifestation, it's quite simple in a way that if somebody is resonating a frequency of, for example, diabetes, or the framework, what I just explained here, the templating for the diabetes, they would continue to experience diabetes in their body. It would continue to manifest in their body. The moment that is shifted, and when somebody is leaving this framework, again, I'm using the word leaving, but it's really just shifting or realizing that there is an alternative, there's a truth available, and that we've been existing in a distorted reality. The resonance of the body is changing, and it all starts from the spirit of that awareness of knowing. The resonance of the body is then shifting, and then we begin to experience life without diabetes, right? And now many of the people who are hearing here is like, well, that's too good to be true. Like, why wouldn't everybody do it all the time, right? Well, this is where we're getting to, like, this is where we're going as a humankind. I'm actually speaking a little bit from the future. I'm telling you a secret. I'm speaking from the future right now. And it's already
happening. The present.
Yes. Well, that's the true future. So again, so this is another thing. True, like in the presence, we actually have an access to future as well. That's a true future. That's not this future. It's a true future that is actually happening in the presence. Mm-hmm. So this is already happening on the planet, right? This kind of healing is happening when somebody has a direct revelation, an actualization of the revelation, like a realization in their body. They can drop off illnesses out of the body. Now that's quite rare still because of where the human evolution is happening, but it's absolutely possible. I mean, I see it not every week, but every other week in my work happening, all kinds of stuff like that. It's no different from emotional stuff, relationship stuff, mental stuff, you name it, whatever it is, works, the money, all of that is all into the same category, right? So God is extremely efficient. Eternal presence is extremely efficient. And most people think that they actually need to hop timelines or go there and go there and go this dimension, that dimension, when the solution is really simple, because all those different dimensions and all the information that we ever need for the manifestation and the power of the manifestation is actually right here in the presence. And getting out of the way of trying to micromanage it and just allowing that to happen, right? So usually for people who they are doing manifestation work and affirmations and whatever, all of this stuff. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with affirmations, because sometimes we need to fake it until we make it. Like that's the case, that saying, meaning that if we are claiming a certain frequency and your mind is actually trying to pull you out of that, it may be good for you to continue to say that affirmation so that you evoke the frequency of it until it becomes your natural resonance, and then it just becomes your reality, right? So some cases the affirmations are really good, but there's so much of that self-centered manifestation that happens, and what people are doing, they are doing the manifestation work out of time. So here we are fundamentally not present. And then we are trying to fix the reality there. Oh, that's just going to get you in the deeper mud, unfortunately. And this is why we hear this cliche of being present, because it really is the foundation. And most people don't want to hear it because it's too simple. And most people, oftentimes when I say this, like, now focus on this, the entire month, just focus on this. And they're like, okay, I'll be present. But then what, then the next questions come up, like, and then what do I do? And all of these things, but none of it is important. Because where these people are really with the good intentions, it's all happening from the good intentions. Everybody's looking for truth, right? Everybody's looking for the same thing. So this is not a judgment against this manifestation work. It's just simply an observation, right? So what these people are really trying to get to, this takes a lot of energy because you're pulling out of your personal resources. You're out of time, you're not fundamentally present, you're sourcing from your personal skills, from your personal resources, whatever you have done, what you haven't done, what you've proved, what you haven't proved, like all of this stuff that creates your life, right? The moment that we understand, and when we truly understand what it means to be here, we release the limited container of the linear timelines, and we are entering in that multidimensional intelligence of presence, which is where you're not actually sourcing from your personal resources anymore. Your personal gifts are being used, absolutely. They are actually being hypercharged and activated, but you are not limited to whatever you've done in the past or whatever expectations you have or whatever, like your parents and upbringing and what happened to you and what didn't happen to you, how much money you have bank account. None of it matters a single thing, right? And that's why it's so incredibly powerful when we start manifesting, when we become the creation, the manifestation itself, and allow God's mind to work its work through us. You simply cannot run out of resources. It's impossible because we're talking about eternal resources, right? Infinite eternal resources. And no, it's not too good to be true. It's our organic and natural state. It's the most organic, it's the most natural state that we have. It's not even supernatural, right? It is the natural state. Everything else is not natural. That is natural, right?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you. The question that arises is, while we're experiencing, a lot more of us are experiencing manifesting and creating from the present moment, there's still a lot of us who are still trying to accept this, take it in, if first even the mind to open up that this is something that's possible. And then they are on the path and then accept more and more things, integrate more and more in their bodies. And then this, I believe we talked about this before, this wobbling that's happening. I'm in the present and manifesting from there. And since not everything around me is showing it yet, whenever I, let's say, enter my home or a certain area or a certain reminder, let's say even a scent, then I fall back because all of a sudden I'm thinking that whatever my reality right now is, that's what it is. So there's this manifestation and not, manifestation of what you want and not. And what pointers can you give to those who are in that space? Because I hear that a lot.
Yeah. So that's where the fine tuning comes in the picture, and this is what I believe I've mentioned this before, how presence never gets old because there's always a deeper presence available. There's always deeper refinement of what that is in our lives that is available, because presence is absolutely multidimensional and active, as I said before. And so what happens, the wavering is very, very common. Like it's actually very rare for somebody just wake up to presence and stay there for the whole time. And there's different, say, levels, or I guess the level would be a good word, levels of presence as well. Like meaning that when we are, say, meditating, we can be in deep presence, or when we're walking in the forest, we are in deep presence, which almost like this experience of really not being there. Like I'm everywhere, like I'm deeply connected, like there's not really thought process happening, there's not internal talk happening in the head or anything, we just are, right? And so many of us have experienced those glimpses of deep presence. Now, being a parent, working, being in community, working in this world, it's not really possible for us to always be in the deep presence. So there is like a lighter presence that is available, right? And I really received some of these keys and understood this deeper through a wonderful presence teacher that I had an honor to sit with for 7 days in France just recently, Leonard Jacobson. He's demanding presence like no one else that I've ever met. It's incredible to be in his presence. But you know, this pointers that there's light presence. So when we are in this conversation, for example, with you right now, we are lightly present here. We're having conversation, we are speaking, thoughts are flowing, we're still in presence. We're still presence, fully presence, but there's a depth of presence that is different from, say, when we are completely immersed and go beyond the separate self, if that makes sense. Hopefully that was just a clear explanation. So understanding that so many people have an idea about presence that is not real, meaning that, oh, being present means that I wouldn't be making plans for the future, or means that I wouldn't be able to actually, like, how can I function as a mother or father or in the family if I'm just present, right? So many people think that they are thinking that deep presence. But now there is a light and active and liquid presence that comes with, that is with us all the time when we are in it, right? And then when we are speaking from it, we're taking action from it, we are parents, we are friends from that space. That changes your entire life. And so for most people, where the wavering happens, they haven't discovered that yet, okay? And it's natural part of this process as well, that something in you, when you are present, right? Something in you thinks that you will need to go to look for what you need from outside presence. And that's where the wavering happens. We seemingly leave the presence, which is not really possible, but we seemingly hop into some other timeline or hop into the not real future or the past, right? And this is where mind is starting to play tricks, because like it starts to get really difficult. Like, oh, I thought that I was following the guidance, but this is where the refinement is so important. We need to continue to take a radical responsibility of the presence, being present all the time, and practicing that in the spirit, because when we are present, we are connected to our spirit. When we're not present, we're starting to look for solutions from somewhere else than from the truth, right? And so it's not really something that we need to even judge ourselves about that, like, oh, now I failed being present, or because this manifestation didn't come to pass, like I did something wrong. So that's again an out of time pattern that thinks that you did something wrong, right? Because there is a certain idea that we held. Again, the self-centered manifestation is involved, right? So it's a very, very, very fine tuning to start noticing this discernment, continuing to notice like, oh, okay, there was the separate self that was trying to lead the way, and bring it back into God's mind. Thy will be done, right? In my life. And that is going to be so much more fulfilling than anything else than we could ever create here, because it's already fulfillment itself, right? It's already the wholeness itself. And so it's something that we just need to continue to keep ourselves accountable for as friends, keeping ourselves accountable. For example, in my relationship with my husband, we're sometimes checking in with each other, like, are you here? Because I don't think you're here. You know, if we notice that the other person is going into some kind of mental whatever storyland, which is, there's nothing wrong with it, but I know that my husband wants to be in presence, right? So I'm going to ask him, are you here? Because for me, it seems like you're not. I ask him to do the same for me, because I'm not always present. You know, there are things that pull me out and I go into the storyland. It's very fast these days that I catch that and then allow the presence to become my reality again, right? It's very fast. So before, many people get lost for weeks, right? Or days or hours. Like, it takes a long time to discover the connection again. It becomes faster and faster and faster and faster. Like, for example, for me, it's now, it's about half a second that the shift happens. It did not used to be that way at all. right? I was wavering and I was gone for a month, and then, oh, I discovered the way back, right? And so the more we practice that, the more natural that becomes, right?
I have two questions here, so I'll pin both. One is recapping of what you were saying, that so there's that deep presence, and then the more surface, if you say that liquid presence, that we can, that what we're doing, we can talk, we can operate in life, if you will, meaning, you know, driving a car and you know, tending to our children. And then the deep presence is that what you would call when you are in full relaxation and you're not really operating, meaning like in a meditative state where you are sitting or laying down and you're not interacting.
Yeah, so you can put it that way. That's the one way of experiencing it, but that would be completely unique for everyone, right? So you would know what deep presence means for you. And it's almost like it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be in like meditation or something. Oftentimes it happens in meditation because we're consciously stilling the movement and the hustle of the day, and we kind of take the moment to just be, right? But for me, deep presence happens randomly as well, just spontaneously in nature, randomly in the middle of conversation. I just like, and there's like no one there's no one else listening. That just God's mind operating, right? So, and I'm not really even aware of it until I come into a lighter presence, right? So that kind of it's happened when I've cooked food or something like that. So it's completely unique for everyone. And the most important thing is to notice the difference between light presence and not being present. Because again, many people think that the busyness of life, like we can't really be present, but that's the opposite. We need to start thinking the opposite way. The more busy your life is, the more present you gotta be. But it's the light presence. And then there's, of course, like a different levels or depths of presence. And it's not like we can really mentally label these things. It's a direct experience, but I think it's a really helpful teaching to know that there is a difference. There's like a different levels and depths of presence. And as long as it's presence, it's good. You're good to go.
And bringing the beginning of this in the manifestation mechanics, would you then have different results depending on the depth of presence that you are manifesting from?
That's a great question. And not really, because as long as it's presence, it's working perfectly in harmony and coherence with the higher will, right? Anything that is not present is not from truth. Okay. So sometimes you can think of it in a way that, I'll give an example. If somebody's sitting in a deep presence and then there's a thought that comes in, and the thought is go and start a school for the specific children in this area, and say there's all the resources and everything available in this example now, then it wouldn't really be fulfilling that instruction, that divine instruction, if this person just continued to sit in go back into the deep presence and continue to be there for the rest of their life, and then, leave the body and go into the eternal dimensions and wherever they go next, right? But what is required is that this person is actually taking action. They would still be in the presence, but they would come into the lighter presence and start taking action, whatever needs to happen to start that school and put everything together and contact people and whatever it is, all still done in presence, provided by God in presence. Not running away and trying to do it with your own resources. That's not going to be successful. Maybe for some people for a little while it will be, but it will eventually hit the ceiling, right? You would eventually always hit the ceiling if you try to do anything out of presence, because it's a limited reality, right? Only presence is the infinite reality. And so all eternal things comes from that. So again, that's where the manifestation may require or does require different depths of presence in our life.
that you brought this in beautifully, and yes, there's a key there, that whatever informations you receive, action, and that's how you're then bringing it into this density of dimension, right? Because this is where through the actions you are taking the particles and manifesting it into matter.
Exactly. Yes.
And all of it is required. So the teachings of you just sit and wait for it to come in, it will not manifest in a 3D unless action is taken. And action is taken from the directions that you're receiving, or the guidance that you're receiving from
Yes.
the higher
Exactly.
dimensions.
Yes. The way that you spoke of it, it really lifted this little piece out that I want to verbalize. Is that's a moment where somebody's present, and they receive a divine instruction from God. And that's a dangerous space of how we respond to it, because, and I've definitely done this mistake more than once and learned from it as well, is like, I received this divine revelation, this instruction, and then we jump out of time to start doing it, right? We start creating identity around it, a story around it, all kinds of stuff. And then here we are in the storyland, and it will be probably fun for a while, but then eventually, like, because I see this all the time, it's like, well, it was a really clear instruction, but then eventually it just crumbled down, and all this stuff started to come up, and like and it didn't finish, right? And that's a really, we can call it the dangerous space, or also the space of opportunity to really confirm, am I in the timing of the eternal presence? This is God's timing, right? God's timing is perfect. We're talking about omnipresent timing that goes beyond the linear time, and mind can never fully, and this is the mystery, that mind can never fully understand how that works, because again, in the presence, we are accessing the true past and the true future as well. And when we are operating from that timeline, we're making sure that everything is in a perfect, like you're exactly in the right place where you need to be. You're facing the right challenges when you need that. You're facing the right people and the solutions, and whatever it is that needs to happen in the place. It's all happening in coherence. It's like an ecosystem that is completely coherent in itself. Now, the moment that we stop jumping out and creating the whole story and identity and buy a domain and create a business around it and all of that, and it's like, whoops, like why did I miss the mark? You got the instruction right, but the outcome and how we would do it, something we got off the path over there. So that's just something that I know this for a lot of people. It's a very innocent pattern, because it comes from a desire to serve, and that's, again, I'm not judging that at all. Like it's such an innocent pattern of like, I just want to be in service. I got this. I'm going to go and run with it. Right. But it's so important to learn how to run with it within the presence, in the presence, which is really borderless. Like there's no borders or limitations to that. But that's such a deep and subtle refinement that is right now happening and becoming available for humans, meaning that we are actually able to embody more presence than before as a human collective, because more and more people are starting to wake up from these realities, including false light, including false darkness, whatever it is, right? Anything that is distorted. And more people start to wake here, and then they actually stop engaging and stop feeding these distorted realities, and they start living in the true reality of presence. And so the less people there are to feed this, the less powerful it is, and the more powerful presence is on earth, on this dimension, right? Because we quite literally become the embodiment of that presence, right? And the more bodies there are walking in eternal presence, the more harmonious and more in harmony we exist, because we start to tap into that higher timelines, right? The timeless timelines.
Yes. Thank you. So I'll bring in the second question that I had earlier, is the mind. the mind that gives us this challenge that we jump into the mind. And as we embody presence, the mind comes with. So it is that restructuring of the mind, that almost like expanding the mind, if you will, but in a very new way, and teaching it to keep that timeline of the presence. And what pointers do you have on that for practice, or what to notice? Because for me, it's a texture, it's a feeling. For me, this information comes in a feeling, and it is so, like you said earlier too, it's so easy to miss. It's just like whoosh, 1 second you're here, next second you're there, and it's the refinement of, oh wait, that just feels different. And since you're seeing, what pointers do you have?
Yeah. It's a really good to keep a humble heart with this specific manner, is that the moment that we think that we've achieved something, that we're completely enlightened, we're probably pretty far out of that, actually. And that's where what I love about Christ's teachings is the humble heart, like continuing to bow down in front of truth, continuing to bow down in front of presence. It's like, teach me. I'm just a human. I have a mind that runs all over the place, that pulls me out of presence all the time, or this used to be historically the case, etc., etc. Teach me, correct me, help me to be here. And this is not speaking to God that is somewhere outside of us. This is speaking to God within, that dimension within, what I call the Christic dimension, which is the tuning fork of truth, right? And so nature is constantly that tuning fork. Nature is constantly, it's stuck in that presence, actually. It doesn't have the mind that would pull it in any other timelines. It's just here. So anything in nature can really help to be that, like, if we notice that the mind is pulling us somewhere, if we notice the mind is really busy, or if we notice that, oh, I'm actually not present right now, instead of going into this whole like bashing ourselves, like, oh, I'm not present, I know better, blah, 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 like that's all creating just this whole guilt system. It just simply like having that observation, right? Okay, I know this, I'm not present, I'm all over the place right now, I don't feel good, I feel anxious, I feel confused, overwhelmed. Is to simply allow that experience to like speak it out, act it out, let it like let that expression to really be alive, and then take a moment to notice like what is actually present. I know this anxiety is not in presence, it's in future right now. So what is here in the presence? So say plants in the house, something like that. It doesn't have to be a natural thing though, because even this water bottle is completely present right now, right? This water bottle doesn't have a mind, an ego, and thoughts and emotions and all of the free will and all of that stuff to be somewhere else. It's just simply stuck in the presence with God. So this is the manifestation of God, if you look at God as a presence in this moment, right? So just simply looking at this water bottle or this pen that is in my hand, what is actually here in the presence? I know what is in the presence right now. For me, you are here in the presence, Melinda. For me, this computer screen is right here in the presence. And so it just becomes so simple. And I know so many people know this, like, oh, I've heard this so many times, but are you really living it? Are you actually embodying it? Are you using that God-given tool that has been given to you about 1,000 times already, right? It's easy to forget. It's so easy to forget, and it gets easier and easier to remember. So there's this whole atmosphere of remembering happening on the planet right now. Massive collective awakening, people remembering, oh, wait a minute, I already have the tools, I already have the solution. Here it is, like, let me just become present so that I can access the tool. So you can think of it in a way that your entire spiritual toolbox and your gifts and everything is in this basket, and this basket is in the presence. So it's quite simple looking at it that way. Like I can't access those tools unless I am in the presence with it, right? So learning how to do it, and it's simply just starting to do it again and again and again, taking these short moments of being present. That's as simple as it is. It's nothing more complicated. And I want to really actually lift this up because somebody sent a really good question. Luann, a sweet lady, sent this a really good question about timeline hopping, like this, the multidimensional aspect of soul, and how can we jump timelines? And we hear this a lot in the ascension community and spiritual healing communities, this timeline hopping. And I don't know how all the people are teaching about it, so I'm just gonna teach the way or talk about it the way that I'm looking at it right now in this present moment from the frequency point of view. So many times when I hear this timeline hopping happening, I'm just going to shift a timeline. It's still actually happening here. So it's happening out of time because that's where all the timelines are, right? This is all a linear timelines. That's where all the timelines, meaning that this second right here, and now this is already a new moment. So that's already a timeline in the history. The next second is a timeline in the future. So it's in the linear timeline over here. So when somebody is doing timeline hopping work, they are still actually working outside presence. And again, it can be fun, but it's not really useful. It's not going to take you really where you want to go, I tell you. It can be a detour. It can be a fun, like adventurous, scenic ride for a little while until you hit the ceiling and you realize, wait a minute, this new timeline is no better than the other one because it's happening out of time. So instead of timeline hopping, what I encourage you to do is to simply become present. Because what happens is that when we really become present and when we discover the magnificence of presence as God's presence, as God's mind, this becomes like bottomless, infinite access to multidimensional gifts and tools and knowledge and whatever it is that you need. Akashic records, everything is accessed right here. And it's completely counterintuitive for the mind because the mind thinks like that can't be it. It's too simple. It can't be the solution for all the problems in the world. It just can't, right? How many people think that? Like, just raise your hand if you do think that somewhere in your system, that you will be surprised. And I witness people becoming surprised by the magnificence of presence. When we simplify everything, suddenly we have all this stuff available to us, right? It's not actually away from us. It's actually giving more to us. But the whole point, that's the whole protection point around it, that we have to actually give the separate self away in order to access it. And nobody can do it by just simply, oh, I'm giving my separate self away right now. Okay, I'm present now, right? It doesn't really work that way. It has to be a fully embodied revelation and realization in the system. And now how you can have that is to continue to court it in a way in the system. I want to know what true presence is. That's as simple as it is. I want to be more intimate with living God. I want to know what truth actually is. Let me experience it in every cell of my body. All of these are questions. All of these are using your free will and your personal desire to become closer and realize and embody that eternal presence that already is.
Ah, that was awesome. And I see the time. I just quickly want to bring this back when you said it's useless. I mean, that statement and from where that sound came, it's like useless point, that there's no more to it. And I know myself in the past, I've experienced, or I participated in a meditation that was timeline jumping, and immediately my system was, there's something off. And I couldn't put words to it at that time, but I never did it again because I knew that there was something off. And you just gave this very simple answer, which is the truth. I mean, the truth is simple. It's everything is in the presence, period.
I love it. That's a sum up for everything. Yes, yes, yes. I feel it's good to actually close it right here because that's it. There's nothing more to say. There really is nothing more to say. This is the whole teaching. And thank you for everybody who was listening. And thank you for continuing to listen, even though it sometimes feel like we're just like talking about the same thing, just with the different words, right? And we really are. That's what presence is. And I'm really excited to see where we are going together as community. There's more and more really great questions coming in, and seeing really the presence as a community becomes present together. We are sharing the field of presence, and now this is opening up entirely incredible things for us. We are talking about high level light technologies coming on Earth, simply because we actually access them by becoming present, right? And so I have this like full-on technician and scientist in me that is just, I can't wait on like seeing how all of this stuff from the future is actually starting to, from presence, from true future, is starting to really take form here, right? On Earth, and we are really seeing it in this lifetime. So congratulations on being where you are right now, because this is going to be a hell of a ride.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. I actually want to correct that. Heavenly ride. It's going to be a heavenly ride.
Oh,
yes.
That's a good one. I like. That's the new ride at Magic Mountain. The heavenly ride.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you soon again. Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you. Bye.